The day we buried my father, my uncle hugged me and whispered, "Don't worry, I'll take care of everything." I believed him. I was 22 years old, grieving, exhausted, and completely unaware that those 7 words would become the biggest lie of my life. Within 6 months, my father's house was no longer mine. His business was no longer mine. Even the small savings account he had opened for me when I was a child had been emptied. My own uncle, my father's younger brother, took everything, and he almost got away with it. This is my story. Stay until the end, because what I discovered in an old drawer changed everything. Let me take you back to the beginning. My name doesn't matter for this story, so let's just call me Amara. My father was a quiet, hardworking man. He ran a small but successful hardware business in our town, the kind of shop everyone in the neighborhood trusted. He built it from nothing, starting with a single rented room when he was 25. My mother passed away when I was only 7, so it was just my father and me for most of my life. He never remarried. He used to say, "Amara, you are my whole family now." He worked long hours, but every evening, no matter how tired he was, he made time to sit with me, ask about my day, and remind me that everything he was building was for my future. When I turned 20, he started involving me in the business. He wanted me to understand every part of it, the accounts, the suppliers, the customers. He always said, "One day, this will all be yours." I never imagined that one day would come so soon and so painfully. My father was diagnosed with a serious heart condition when I was 21. The doctors said it was manageable if he took care of himself, but 6 months later, he suffered a massive heart attack in his sleep. He was gone before the ambulance even arrived. I was alone, truly alone for the first time in my life. And that is exactly when my uncle stepped in. My uncle, my father's younger brother, had never been close to us. He lived in another city, visited maybe once or twice a year, and had his own struggling business that never quite worked out. My father used to help him financially from time to time, quietly, without ever mentioning it to me. I only found this out much later. After the funeral, my uncle stayed at our house to help me through the grief, as he put it. At first, I was grateful. I was in no condition to handle paperwork, phone calls, or business decisions. My uncle offered to manage the shop temporarily, just until I felt ready. It seemed like a kind gesture. Family helping family. That's what I believed. He started going to the shop every day. He met with my father's accountant. He talked to the suppliers. He told me, "Don't worry about any of this. Focus on healing." Looking back now, I realize how carefully he was building his plan. About a month after the funeral, he brought me a stack of papers to sign. He said they were simple formalities, transferring the business license temporarily into his name so he could legally continue operations while my father's estate was being processed. I trusted him completely. I signed without reading every line carefully. I was 22, grieving, and had never dealt with legal documents in my life. I had no idea that one of those papers was actually a full transfer of ownership. That single signature became the foundation of everything he stole from me. Over the next few weeks, small things started to change. My uncle stopped asking for my opinion on business matters. When I visited the shop, the staff would look at me differently, almost like I was a guest instead of the owner's daughter. One of the old employees, a man named Farouk who had worked for my father for over 10 years, pulled me aside one day and said quietly, "Amara, be careful. Things are changing here, and not for the better." I didn't understand what he meant until a week later. My uncle called me into what used to be my father's office. He told me calmly that he had decided to restructure the business for efficiency. He said the paperwork I had signed gave him full authority to make these decisions. When I asked to see the documents again, he brushed me off, saying, "You don't need to worry about the details. I'm handling everything for the family." That was the first time I felt real fear. Within 2 months, he had sold 2 of my father's delivery vehicles without telling me. He claimed it was to cut costs. A month after that, he informed me that the house, my father's house, the one I grew up in, needed to be sold as well, because according to him, there were outstanding business debts that had to be cleared. I asked to see proof of these debts. He never showed me anything concrete. Every time I asked questions, he would say the same thing. I'm your uncle. Do you think I would do something wrong to my own brother's daughter? I wanted to believe him. He was the only family I had left. But slowly, painfully, the truth started to surface. One evening, Farouk, the loyal employee, came to see me privately. He told me that my uncle had already begun negotiating to sell the entire business to an investor from another city. Not restructure it. Sell it completely. And once that money came in, my uncle had booked a flight overseas for himself and his family. I felt like the ground had disappeared beneath my feet. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat in my father's old room, surrounded by his belongings, feeling more alone than I had ever felt in my life. I kept asking myself the same question, over and over. How could someone who shared my father's blood do this to me? The next morning, I decided I was not going to sit quietly and lose everything my father had built. I went to a lawyer, someone my father had once mentioned in passing, a family friend named Mr. Idris who had helped him years ago with a property matter. I told him everything. He listened carefully, then asked me one important question. Do you have a copy of your father's will? I didn't know if one even existed. My father had never spoken to me directly about a will. I always assumed everything would simply come to me, since I was his only child. Mr. Idris told me something that gave me a small spark of hope. He said that in cases like this, even if I had unknowingly signed papers under emotional distress, a legitimate will, if it existed and was properly registered, could still override fraudulent transfers, especially if it could be proven that I was misled. I went back to the house that same day and searched everywhere. I looked through drawers, old boxes, files in the office. For hours, I found nothing. Then, late at night, exhausted and almost ready to give up, I remembered something. My father used to keep a small wooden box in his closet, one he never let me touch as a child. He always said, "This is for when you're older." I opened it. Inside, wrapped carefully in a plastic folder, was a sealed envelope with my name written on it in my father's handwriting, along with a formally registered will, dated almost 2 years before his death. My hands were shaking as I read it. In the will, my father had clearly stated that the business, the house, and all his savings were to go entirely to me, his daughter, upon his passing. There was even a specific clause stating that no other family member, including his brother, had any legal claim to his assets unless I chose to share them voluntarily. He had planned for this. He had protected me, even without telling me directly. The next morning, I brought the will to Mr. Idris. He confirmed it was legally valid and properly registered with the local authorities years earlier. This meant that any transfer my uncle had arranged using my signature, obtained under misleading circumstances, could be legally challenged and reversed. We filed the necessary legal case immediately, along with a formal complaint about the unauthorized sale of the vehicles and the attempted sale of the business. When my uncle found out, he came to the house in a rage. He accused me of betraying the family, of turning against my own blood. He said I was ungrateful after everything he had done for me. I stood my ground for the first time in my life. I told him calmly, "You didn't help me. You used my grief against me. My father protected me even after he was gone, and I'm not going to let you take what he built." The legal process took several months. It wasn't easy. There were moments I doubted myself, moments I felt exhausted by paperwork, court dates, and the emotional weight of fighting my own family. But Farouk stood by me the entire time, testifying honestly about what he had witnessed. Mr. Idris guided me patiently through every step. In the end, the court ruled in my favor. The property transfer was declared invalid due to fraudulent misrepresentation. My uncle was ordered to return the money from the vehicles he had sold, and the attempted business sale to the outside investor was blocked completely. My uncle never contacted me again after the final court decision. I heard, through distant relatives, that he eventually moved away with his family, still struggling financially, still chasing shortcuts instead of building anything real. I kept my father's business. I kept our home. But more importantly, I learned something my father had tried to teach me my entire life, without me even realizing it. Real strength isn't about having someone protect you forever. It's about learning to protect yourself when the people you trust the most let you down. Looking back now, years later, I understand why my father kept that will hidden until I needed it most. He knew life could be unpredictable. He knew that grief could make people vulnerable, easy to manipulate. And in his own quiet way, without ever making me feel afraid, he made sure I would be protected even in his absence. I also learned something harder to accept. Not everyone who shares your blood shares your values. Family is not just about relation, it's about respect, honesty, and loyalty. My uncle taught me that lesson in the most painful way possible. If there's one thing I want anyone watching this to take away, it's this. Never sign important documents when you're grieving or emotionally overwhelmed, no matter who is asking you to. Always take a moment, ask questions, and if possible, involve someone you trust who has no personal stake in the outcome, like a lawyer or a neutral family friend. And if you ever find yourself in a situation where someone you trusted takes advantage of your pain, remember my story. It is possible to fight back. It is possible to reclaim what is rightfully yours, even when it feels like the entire world is against you. Today, I run my father's business the way he taught me, with honesty, patience, and respect for the people who work with me. Farouk still works there, now as my most trusted manager. Every year, on the anniversary of my father's passing, I visit his grave and simply say, "Thank you for protecting me, even when I didn't know I needed it." This story is a reminder that inheritance isn't just about property or money. It's about trust, and sometimes the people we trust the most can hurt us the deepest. But it's also a story about resilience, about how a young woman, left completely alone, found the strength to stand up for herself and honor her father's legacy instead of letting it be stolen away. If you were in Amara's position, would you have trusted your uncle the same way? Or would you have asked more questions from the very beginning? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. So, to sum it all up, a grieving daughter trusted her uncle after her father's death, only to watch him quietly steal her home, her business, and her savings. But through courage, an old hidden will, and the support of a loyal friend, she fought back and reclaimed everything her father had worked so hard to build. Life will sometimes test you through the people closest to you. But remember this, your strength is not measured by how many times you fall, but by how many times you choose to rise and protect what truly matters to you. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more real, emotional stories just like this one. Turn on the notification bell so you never miss the next story. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.